Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 92 of Podcast of Five Rings, your source of enlightenment in the realm of video games, tabletop, anime, film, and tech. Each episode of Podcast of Five Rings releases Monday mornings on iTunes and SoundCloud, and topic by topic, day by day on YouTube, with the full video releasing on Friday. To catch updates about the podcast or for other news, give us a follow on your social media platform of choice, listed in the description below. I'm your host, GM, and overseer of Podcast of Five Rings, Obsidian, and you know what? We're just going to skip the hoo-ha. It's me and Meta, okay?
Oh, okay.
He's the Dark Fortune duelist.
Wait! I was going to say, I was getting really upset. It's like, you called yourself the GM Overseer, and I don't get my title? Absolutely
You get your
not.
title. I'm just not going to pretend
give you
that Tetsuo
typos
Mao
for days.
here.
That's it. Dark Fortune of typos is activating.
I have enough without your horrible curses. I'd write badly enough without you, sir.
Yeah, you know that every typo gets me a little bit stronger.
Yeah, it does. Your power only grows. So, some announcements, kind of. Mao is out for the foreseeable future because his work, Tetsuo Mao work, I don't think they've ever really explained it completely. Accurately. Like, they work in the same building, but for different companies or something. I don't know. But Mao's part of the company. They basically went to, 12-hour shifts or whatever, and he happens, or, one day of the week they have to work 12 hours, or 2 days or something, is how Tetsuo was explaining to me. And his happens to fall on the day that, the only day we can really record, so, he'll be back eventually, don't know when, but for this foreseeable future, and Tats is hit or miss, of course, because of his child. So you're stuck with us. You got me and Meta, your favorite two people.
The guys without responsibilities to life.
Well, you're married and stuff.
I know I'm married, but it's no. I just have her do everything.
That's what I'm responsible for.
Can I say that? Can I just say that? That's like
say what?
I was gonna say that's wife for, right? That's what they're for.
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah, absolutely. She's gonna kill me.
They handle all the responsibility.
Absolutely. I'm just if you go by commercials, I'm just a big idiot as the husband now.
You know what commercial I am?
What?
I'm the Mucinex blob. That's me.
I want to be like that commercial where they're trying to did you ever see the Brian Regan skit where he talks about men in commercials and whatnot, and he says they got a brand muffin commercial, and it starts off and it's like, my husband is so stupid, and it swaps over to him and you see he's tangled in the blinds and whatnot, desperately trying to get out. He's like, that's why I do my thinking, his thinking for him.
Is that you?
It's that's what I've been relegated to. I'm the idiot, so that's why she does all the work.
Yeah, I got it. Is it just like you sitting at a computer desk with your cats all over you?
They're magnetized.
And Lily just with her hands on her hips.
He's like, my husband is an idiot.
It's just like me in bed watching bad anime. That's my life.
you got the sad music playing. You got the tank top on. You got the big bag of chips. And
yeah.
You're reaching out lazily to take it.
Well, I'm on keto, so I'm not even eating chips. It's even sadder.
Yeah. You're probably just take your chicken wing that you got on the side.
Exactly. Speaking of chicken wings, I went to eat all-you-can-eat chicken wings last night at a local barbecue place, which me and one of my roommates do every Wednesday night. And, it was not good last night. I got dry rub on them, and something about the spices did not sit well with old Ob's stomach this morning. Also had a fun day at work. I had to take a delivery 50 miles away.
Oof.
For one of the sales reps who's in New York City this weekend and left early on vacation. It was imperative that one football jersey get to this team that's all the way down in northeast Georgia, near where the Squidbillies cartoon is. So that was me driving around the middle of nowhere.
Imperative that it be brought there.
Oh yeah, it was either today or tomorrow I was going to have to do it, and work was pretty slow today, so I was like, fuck it, I'll go ahead and do it. So
that's probably the craziest part. Is like work is so slow. You're just like, yeah, sure, why not?
Whatever. I got paid to like be gone for 3 hours, so it was fun. You know,
just make sure you get your federal mileage in, bro.
I know, right? We get paid like $50 in reimbursement, I guess.
Oh,
According
really?
to our little spreadsheet thing that we log. I was like, that seems excessive, but I'm not going to complain.
I was going to say,
probably spent like, my car gets pretty good gas mileage, so I probably spent like $7 in gas, maybe. So
I think the mileage rate is really meant to like cover gas, but it's not meant to cover anything else, which kind of sucks a little bit because you're obviously not just burning gas when you're freaking driving the car. You're putting miles on it and whatnot. Wear and tear and all that. It definitely does not cover it.
Yeah. So
it always irks me.
It's yeah.
Thing, man.
So should we
get
also, into? Go ahead.
Also irks me, dude.
What's that?
Our topic tonight.
Okay. You cut off. Now let's get into. Okay.
I wanted this good segue.
Oh, our topic's so serious too.
It is very serious.
It comes from a serious foundation.
Are you ready to take a deep breath, Obs, and prepare yourself? Because no matter what you say, it's wrong.
I know it's just gonna make someone mad.
Somebody's gonna be upset.
Why don't you introduce us into this world we're going to be exploring?
Since there's only two of us tonight, and there's pretty much only one really hot thing going on this week.
Yeah,
we're going to talk about it because it does fall into the realm of gaming, and it's actually a pretty good topic to talk about. Being like, we're going to get serious. Let's get serious here. So, if you haven't been aware, there has been a few things going on with China in the week. Good old the One Republic, one time, one country, one nation. They have earned the ire of a number of people from different locations. It kind of started off this week with South Park. They released their episode, I think it was Tuesday or something, and they kind of bashed a little bit on China. And
it's more like Disney and China's like, the kind of like relationship they have where Disney's will bend over backwards because they make a lot of money in China. They were kind of like harpooning off that a little bit. Yeah,
it was obviously satire. Even if you don't watch South Park, it's very heavily satired to excessively extreme levels. They do not mind like being really excessive about how they do that satire, as long as gets the point across really hard. Obviously, China is known to be a very compassionate country, and they can take things in stride. Decided that in order to continue this effort of change, they decided to ban everything about South Park and scrub all of their internets that had anything with South Park on it, which is obviously a very reasonable and very conservative reaction to take to this kind of thing about criticism. And can't say that. I can't really finish saying that. This wasn't made any better because then the NBA ended up tweeting out one of the guys in NBA. I don't know.
The Houston Rockets GM.
Yes, Houston Rockets GM. Thank you very much because I don't.
Daryl Morey.
He ended up tweeting out "Fight for freedom, stand with Hong Kong" or something akin to that, and then quickly deleted the tweet. Obviously, once it's on the internet, it's on the internet forever. It was seen by no doubt somebody, and China was not so happy about that. They ended up having to issue an apology from the NBA, and then
like 2 days later,
like just not even a day or two later, we had a Hearthstone tournament from Blizzard, and at the end of the Hearthstone tournament, a good old man who won it, his name is Chung Njiwa. I don't know how to say it at middle part of the name. I don't know what NG even stands for. It's not really a word as far as I'm concerned, but Blitzchung, as he's more commonly known. He ended up essentially giving out a pro Hong Kong to support for them during a live stream from a Hearthstone tournament, and was subsequently essentially taken. The Blizzard responded by taking the $10,000 of the money he won away from him, banning him for a year. And I guess because casualties of war, they also fired the 2 casters, the Taiwanese commentators, I believe they're Taiwanese anyway, commentators, as part of that stream. They've both been fired. Although nobody really knows why on that last part. I'm not sure why they got hit with anything.
Guilty by association.
I assume so. I assume so. So obviously there's been a lot with China going on. We're not really going to talk about the first 2 parts because they don't really have anything to do with the games. We are going to talk about Blizzard's response to it. And I don't really think there's anything we need to say on the actual response. You can go to any news site and look it up, and you'll see that, everybody's reporting on it. Blizzard did this, like they did Y, Blizzard did X in response. And that's been what everybody's been fighting about. It's gotten pretty heated. You can pretty much go to any website and it's going to be at least a news article somewhere on a webpage, at least at the time of us talking about it. I think, though, what's a little bit more important for possibly for us to talk about is not so much like what happened, because that's isn't done. I think it's more appropriate for us to talk about is kind of a a discussion on is this the best route to take? Is this response good? Now, just to be aware, Blizzard is by law in their right to do so. You have to sign a certificate and everything. Essentially, you are signing a contract saying that if you show up on one of their services or for like a tournament or something, that you cannot do X, Y, and Z, and they clearly state that you cannot put out political positions and platforms on them, and supporting or not supporting HoloCon is a political position. So by law, Blizzard is in the right. So there is that. But I think that last time I asked, is this a good thing, was during our copyright talk on ROMs. And I didn't really get a chance to like expound on that. I do know it was like really late into the episode. We kind of needed to push on. But I did want to explain like what I meant about that a while ago now, because I think it's a really good thing to point out. When I'm asking, is this a good thing? I'm not very specific. What I mean is this the moral road that we wish to potentially walk as either people or, and not to be grandiose, but as mankind towards the future in these kind of situations? Because from a moral standpoint, obviously it sucks. As one person, I believe we found, what was it? Brian Kibler put it best. And we have
a former pro Magic player.
Yep.
He might still be pro. I don't remember. That could be true.
I don't know.
He's big in the commentating scene with Magic and Hearthstone.
Yep. He put out a really well-made statement on the whole concept of it, and it's a really good read. It's a great statement, and I would absolutely recommend that everybody go and read it.
Pretty much agree with everything he said.
Yeah, we do. We think he's absolutely spot on, which kind of takes a little bit out of the steam out of my engine, because I was like, this is what I wanted to say, and he's beating me to the punch. But that's fine, because it's good to know that somebody else agrees. We all feel that in the end of the day is that, Blizzard has the right to do what they do. We do feel it's heavy-handed. I personally find it really weird that the commentators were fired as well, because they really had nothing to do with this guy showing support for it.
Yeah, they didn't say anything about it. They were just like, hey, we understand. I think basically they said, hey, we understand you want to speak after your big win. What did you want to say? And then he said what he said, and they were kind of like, they saw the mask and were like hid behind the table, because I think they knew like whatever happened, it was going to be kind of a big deal.
Yeah, it was rather crazy in regards to it. So I don't know if they really knew this was coming. Maybe they're doing an internal investigation. It seems really weird, but
I think Blizzard has announced they're like looking into it more closely, but who knows what's going to happen.
Yeah, the fact that they already fired them is really telling of event. It really does, as Brian Killer put it, this is making an example not only of Blitzchung, which, by the way, is really extreme to ban him for a year and take the full prize money away. But what makes it such an stone, I think, is kind of more of a made an example of somebody, is that they fired the 2 casters as well. Those casters had nothing to do other than ask him, like, hey, you wanted to say something. Yeah. So if it turns out, though, that they planned it, well, then I guess they'd be in the right. Technically, they would be in the right to say, you did help promote a political view, so you would be in our right to, remove you. But the fact that they've already fired them before even actually deciding, before even looking into it, either says that they already knew on the spot, or it just doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. So,
well,
but
go ahead. Sorry,
I was gonna say, but kind of jumping back just a little bit. Is like, going to what I think really matters is like, is this the road that we should apply for, for companies and people in the future? Because right now, I think this could have been potentially solved on a far better level, simply just stating that, whatever people say at these events for Blizzard does not reflect what the company's beliefs or thoughts are. This would have possibly solved a lot of problems for them on both ends, as opposed to just saying you can't say these things. Now, obviously, they may not want just these concepts or ideas to come onto the screen at all, and I can understand why. It's not a part of there. This is not the area to talk about it. Your political views don't matter. But there's a lot more connotations towards it. The extreme response to them, to what he did, is perhaps a little bit too heavy-handed, which is why a lot of people are very, passionate and angry about the response. And technically there is no clause in there explaining exactly what, at least as far as I understand from what I've seen and read up on it, because it's not like I can look at the actual contract. I haven't been able to find it or have time to find it, but one of the two. But as far as I'm aware, there is no clause explaining what the exact degree of punishment is for breaking that constituent as part of the contract agreed upon by professional players and Blizzard.
Yep.
So I'm not. So it kind of leaves it open, very heavy-handed. It leaves it very open to interpretation of them, and I don't like that, because if you're leaving it open to interpretation, you can end up finding a room where somebody might get a slap on the wrist for something, but then somebody else will suddenly have this happen to them where they're banned and they lose the money and everything. I don't think that's really the right way to do it. I think in the future it might have just been better to say they don't represent us. They have a chance to talk about these things, they have a chance to say something if they want to at the end of an event or whatever. And if they decide to spout that, that's fine, but that doesn't reflect on us. But I understand why they may not want to make this also a potential platform where they abuse it as well. I don't know. What do you think, man?
Blizzard, I was watching a video from Bellular, who's a guy who covers general gaming news, but more specifically, he does a lot of videos about WoW. If you kept up with WoW at all, you might be familiar with him. He was talking about the whole situation, and I think Blizzard's board of trustees has in their contract, they're basically legally required to do something I don't remember the exact wording of their contract, but they have to protect the country's, or not the country, the company's financial interests basically they have to do whatever they have to do to make sure the company is making as much money as it can. I mean, and that's the goal of any, corporation or business. So, it's understandable and predictable that Blizzard would react in the way they did. And, I think Blitzchung knew that. That's why he did what he did. He knew that he was going to lose a lot of money. He knew Blizzard was going to make an example of him. And, kudos to him for still saying what he believed in and, putting your cause means nothing if you're not going to sacrifice something for it. And he's sacrificing a lot of money. He's sacrificing his future as a esports person, as a Hearthstone competitor. Does he have to go to other games now? Who knows what the Chinese government could possibly do? Because he's, so, as far as the ramifications, what, I don't know if Blizzard necessarily, idealistically, you would love for them to, like we were talking about before the podcast, we live in a Western civilization. A lot of our, kind of moral and ethical concepts are based on freedom of speech. You can express yourself. You can say whatever you want to say, as long as it doesn't harm anyone. This is kind of the ethical backbone of Western society. So, we want other people elsewhere to have that to share in that same ethical, what's the word? Those same benefits, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So,
okay.
It's good. I support, Hong Kong and them wanting to emancipate themselves and, have democracy and be able to express themselves, because China's doing some messed up stuff. It's kind of getting pretty dystopian over there with some the social, if you say stuff negative about the Chinese government on social media. They have like basically like a social credit score thing they do, so it makes it harder for you to like get loans with good interest rates and like buy a house and do all this other stuff. Like that's it's kind of like
it's
crazy.
Very messed up. Yeah.
Like the internment camps they have with like, in that one province, I can't remember the name of it. They've got like over 1 million people locked up, I believe. So, it's some really bad stuff going on over there. And but at the same time, Blizzard has financial responsibility to its shareholders as a company. They have to react this way. And it's, it's predictable that they'd react this way. And just like the NBA, it's predictable they'd react the way they did. I mean, I think over half their market is Chinese, and they're like an $8 billion company. Like they produce $8 billion a year, and like $5 billion of that is from China.
Yeah, China is a humongous player in the market for
just in the world economy. Just in general.
In general, yes, absolutely. But I think they're very strong, specifically in the electronic entertainment area, and that's what makes them such a hard thing for any company to say no to, because it's quite literally a gold mine, just kind of standing there and going like, yes, please, mine me.
What's the biggest gaming platforms that China embraces? You look at mobile. PC and mobile gaming. What is Blizzard primarily? PC and mobile gaming. Look at last year's BlizzCon. Diablo Immortal is basically them trying to make a lot of money in the Chinese mobile market. So
it's been a really bad just run for Blizzard. They keep showing up in every time they keep showing up in the news, it's bad.
Yeah. So bad. Last year we had almost a year ago to the date, and BlizzCon's coming up. This isn't going to go away. I'm curious how they're going to handle this, because a lot of people are kind of looking about this BlizzCon as like they're probably going to announce Diablo 4. A lot of people expect Overwatch 2 to be announced. A lot of people expect the next WoW expansion to be announced. So this is a very big BlizzCon. Last year's BlizzCon was lampooned with the whole Diablo Immortal. We talked about on the podcast, the whole, do you even have phones? The Diablo Immortal thing. BFA has been widely considered by many as their least favorite WoW expansion, and possibly the worst. That or Warlords of Draenor. So, Blizzard is not in the best place right now. And now they got all this controversy.
Don't forget about when they ended up putting out a statement saying it was technically one of their best financial years, and at the same time let 770 people of theirs go.
Yeah, so they've just been in hot water for a long time. It's just
no matter, every time they show up, it's something wrong from a moral or a news standpoint. They just seem to do something that gets them in hot water. It's phenomenal. I've never seen a company do this as well as EA has, honestly.
We've got like them and EA and Square. It feels like it's just like, come on, guys.
But, I'm gonna give Square a prop here, because Square has slowly been getting their crap together. It's like Capcom, man. Capcom was terrible for like 6 or 7 years, and now suddenly they're putting out great games and they're doing wonderful. I mean, DMC5, Monster Hunter, and now we just released Iceborne, which is also phenomenal. They're doing good. It's just their area of fighting games that kind of sucks, which is what they're supposed to be good at too, which is kind of ironic. But I mean, you've got Square is at least doing okay. They're doing okay. They're picking themselves up from 13 and 15 and so on and so forth. But yeah, this obviously sucks. It's always crappy to see a player, let alone others, be removed from the situation of this. I don't think, without taking a stance on the current issue, I don't think this is probably the way it should be handled. And I think if Blizzard or anybody wants to really take a step forward, is that it is technically censorship via a country through investment or the like, essentially censoring things that people say and their beliefs and whatnot. I think a lot of times there is the concept, obviously, you just mentioned it earlier, is like the freedom of speech and whatnot. And then, yes, freedom of speech doesn't apply everywhere. That's obvious. It doesn't always apply into every situation. You can't shout, like, say, fire in a movie theater, because that, could cause panic and harm more than it would actually help. But I also think that this seems a little bit too strong, heavy-handed on censorship recently.
Yeah, like, what do you think they would have? Do you think they would have done anything if, for instance, he had said something in support of China in their government. Like,
Yeah,
maybe they would have fined him. Maybe he would have been banned from one tournament.
I still think he would have been in trouble. But what I think would have happened is it wouldn't have been as hard of trouble. And the bigger problem is I think this is a very sensitive subject. Hong Kong is effectively fighting for what is, some might argue, is a very slow, suffocating death. But they're fighting for their freedom, their independence, and whether you agree with them or not, that is exactly what they're fighting for. So it's a very hot topic. There is already Taiwan. Taiwan isn't even technically considered, Taiwan, quote unquote. It's just considered another part of the one Republic of China.
Yeah. Chinese Taipei.
That's exactly what it is. It's Chinese Taipei. And obviously that's not okay with the Taiwanese, because the Taiwanese do have their very different culture from what they consider to be from, mainland China and whatnot, which, as far as history cares, is very true.
Let's talk about the Tea War. What was it? The Tea War? Something like that. It was Britain and China.
It was
back in the
it was
day.
Britain and China. It dealt with their opium and that.
The Opium War. That's what it was.
Yeah,
I'm
that
sorry.
was huge. We're way out of our league on that one.
There
are better channels.
I've watched the extra credit video, so I'm obviously a scholar on it.
Obviously, we're both scholars, because I too have watched it.
Yeah.
I would ask to say, if you haven't watched it, go to it, because it's a very interesting read on both.
Yeah, and it kind of informs the situation.
It does. It really does kind of breed a light as to why they are the way they are now, in a sense. Especially if you continue to watch the other episodes or read more about when Mao first came into power for China and kind of started up the People's Republic, so to speak, and that era, and that eventually led to the communist China that we have now. That it was a very different time back then. It will lead you quite literally along each step of the way as to why China became the way they are now, and so forth. But obviously, going back to Hong Kong, it's obviously a very sensitive subject, which is why I think Blizzard so quickly were to slam out an answer, even if that answer was very clearly heavy-handed, almost made an exampling of someone. And again, I would kind of stand behind that and say, yeah, kind of feels like it, especially with the casters being, shot as well. You shot like the two messengers and the dude who made the shout in the first place. So,
yep.
Honestly, with the freedom of speech kind of being the biggest contender in this argument, there definitely probably needs to be more clarity in the separation of an individual from what they represent. I think, in a way, and maybe I'm being a bit too optimistic on this one, but just as we oftentimes may shout out the idea of separation of church and state, there should be potentially the separation of a person from their position. Somebody decides that they want to support something, whether they're a part of an industry or a corporation or the like. That is the individual's thoughts and beliefs. It shouldn't reflect the company as a whole, regardless of their position. Even if the CEO says, I think we should liberate, protect Hong Kong, liberate Hong Kong and whatnot.
Yep.
That is the CEO as an individual's own thought. That doesn't mean that the VP, that doesn't mean, I should say technically one of his VPs, because there's going to be more than one VPs, but that doesn't mean the CFO or the CIO is going to agree with him. That doesn't mean that the shareholders of the company are going to agree with him. It doesn't matter what that person personally states, because they are, as an individual, just a single person who's stating their beliefs. And I think there probably needs to be a stronger separation of that from the companies. I do understand that, obviously Blizzard put it in there, and I don't know why they've put it in there, actually. I'm not sure what they did. I assume just so that it's, not a topic that somebody brings up on camera to spout their beliefs and the like.
Yeah.
So that it can stay on subject, which is whatever the game might be. And I can understand that it's likely copying from, sports games and whatnot. But this kind of feels, in a sense, akin to when, and I don't remember his name, unfortunately, because I'm terrible with them. But when the guy took the kneel during the...
Oh, you're talking about Kaepernick?
Yeah. When he took a kneel for that and whatnot. That was his chance to kind of speak what he felt, but it wasn't a reflection of the NFL. It wasn't a reflection of the team. It wasn't like that. It was a reflection of his own personal thoughts and beliefs. And that is how he truly felt about something, and he felt the need to perform that action in order to show people what he's thought. Now, obviously, technically, and in reality, he is utilizing a platform that gives a lot more attention to him as opposed to a random person to spout that belief. So technically, you could argue it carries more weight. And he is likely very aware of the fact that he chose that moment not to do it so that it would bring attention to it. I mean, nobody does these things with because they don't think it's going to bring attention. Nobody's that dumb. They're going to go in there and kind of think they're like, hey, if I say this is a chance for me to tell people something and to push it out to a lot of people who might be looking, which is likely why Blitzchung did it as well.
Yep.
But I would like to see, again, just a stronger separation of the person from the company. So that way in the future, when these kind of things come up, that it's very clearly more associated with who we know the person, where the person should stand and where the company should stand. So it's not a reflection of one or the other. I also think that maybe there should be more in-written stipulations as to what potentially can happen to you, or at least a very personally, I would take a very hard line of this is what will happen if you break X. Yeah. If you do Y, you break X rule, this is what's going to happen. I think that's probably the most fair, because that gives somebody a very clear statement of this. Everybody knows right from the start, once you sign, this is what will happen.
Mm-hmm. And I think Blizzard's going to look at that and probably, outline something that's a little bit more clear as to what you can and can't do, what the consequences of it will be. And I agree with your point you just made. Ideally, I would love for that to be the case where we can, separate a person from the entity and, just judge them on what they say, what their thoughts, what their actions are. And, in America, I think we do that for the most part. In some instances, we're bad at it. And, you can always pick out specific instances of anything that, things don't always work out the best way. So, for the most part, I think we do an all right job of that. And unfortunately, the Chinese government just doesn't have that view. If Blizzard didn't say what they did, and if the NBA didn't react the way they did, they're just going to do what they did with South Park and ban the stuff. So if it's that bad, like if they don't kind of like side with them, that's just how, based off, the evidence we have up to this point, like with South Park released a satirical apology that mocked the whole situation. So obviously they're not going to ban them, and South Park doesn't care. But South Park, doesn't have all that money tied up, so it's a damned if you do, damned if you don't kind of situation. It's not something I envy them in at all. No. And like you said, it's just a delicate, it's a delicate political situation, and this is literally the worst possible time it could happen for Blizzard, because it's going to hang over BlizzCon 2019 like a shadow. Are people going to bring signs that say, free liberate Hong Kong? May, the Overwatch character, has become a symbol of the Hong Kong independence.
They're literally putting May into everything. Somebody even made a joke on the May. Says like, well, since they're banning Blitzchung, let's see if we can just get all of Overwatch banned from China as well while we're at it. And they're posting up pictures of May with like free Hong Kong and justice for Hong Kong or liberate Hong Kong, and it's showing up everywhere. You can't get rid of it. So it's it's always gonna be associated. If she starts to become a symbol of liberating like Hong Kong, kind of like how they've banned freaking Winnie the Pooh because
the Chinese president,
their Chinese
been
president
like photoshopped on him and
can't
stuff.
Freaking take take satire.
Yeah.
Which I want to make just a slight detour on the subject here. Anybody, let alone any country, that cannot take satire or criticism and then instead responds by either attacking or outright restricting and banning or any combination thereof, only makes themselves look weaker.
Yeah, it's a bit ridiculous.
You become kind of laughable. Like, you can't take the criticism, so therefore I'm going to ban it because of my position of power. I can't take what you're being said about us, so we're going to stop doing anything with you. We're going to pull ourselves away from you and everything. Mm-hmm. These are all signs, ironically enough, of this, not only of the control that China seems to have on a number of things, but how sensitive something is. It just, again, the person that you're never going to look up to is the guy who lashes out because somebody called him a wanker. You're just not.
Yeah.
You just don't look up to that kind of person. They're not the person you want to be. Somebody who can kind of pass off and go like, no, that's your thought and you're totally, okay to have it. That's what people will generally respect more, because that person has clearly a far stronger sense of control on themselves.
Yeah. So, what do you think, because, we were talking about, too, like, what the possible ramifications of all this happening are, like, what... Like, other companies who are big into PC gaming and mobile gaming, will they, if something happens, because something is inevitably going to happen with another gaming company. It just is. Like, will someone in I'm trying to think of other games that are... Well, everything's like a Blizzard game that's big over there. It's like StarCraft. Well, that's Blizzard too, though.
Epic Games, I do know, is owned.
Oh, yeah.
It's like a humongous investment.
Tencent owns 40% of Epic Games, I believe.
I don't know what Epic Games are going to do if they have
their owner said, he said, I will not punish any of our employees for sharing their political opinions. Is what the to contrast that with Blizzard Activision, Tencent owns 5% of that company. They own 40% of Epic Games, and the owner of Epic Games, but they're different. They're a privately owned business. They're not a publicly owned corporation where they have a responsibility to their shareholders to make the company money. So it's just the one guy owns the company. It's privately owned. He's gonna the Chinese company only owns 40. The investment companies only put 40% of their money into the company. He's gonna go, whatever. Fuck you. My employees can say whatever the hell they want to say.
Yeah, you've got. It's really funny how like the guy with 40% in them has such a different thought process on them. I know that over the years, a lot more companies have removed. Like, for instance, nearly every airline has removed Taiwan as an option to fly to in China. Now it is now it is a part of it's serious. It is now all considered to be a part of the Republic of China. And it would just be it wouldn't be like, you're flying to Taiwan, you're flying to a part of Republic of China that just happens to be the state of Taiwan, essentially. Yeah. So you get these kind of companies have done this before. There's a whole list out there you can find of just all these different places and companies and people who have either fired somebody for saying something about either Taiwan. And generally, it used to be Taiwan. Now it's going to be about Hong Kong, but Taiwan was the other one at the time. But a lot of people being either released or let go for something that they said or did that either reflected on the idea that Taiwan is an individual form or an individual state, not a part of China, or for their thoughts on another controversial topic. So this is not like something that's new. This is just the one that's finally really hit the front page because it's been such a big thing. I don't know what to say for where this is going to lead or the repercussions for it or what that's going to translate into the future. Obviously, people are pretty upset about this. There are already people that have heavily unsubscribed from Blizzard's gaming services. They actually did shut down their unsubscribing. People kept 404ing on it.
Yep.
So it's been shut down for a period of time. I'm certain it's mostly just from the fact that, everybody and their mother bum rushed the service.
Yeah, they're getting like DDoSed almost.
Yeah, it's essentially equivalent to being DDoSed. I would like to think that ultimately at the end of the day, that this will put in, and we take the best lesson from this experience, the one that is beneficial to people, not to a specific side or a corporation or an ideology, but beneficial to the people as a whole, in that this is worked upon so that this situation can be approached with far more clarity in the future. That we can ultimately, the ramification is a company will look at their employees and understand that what they say does not represent the company. I think that's a very big thing because that is something that exists in companies right now. There are many companies that when you sign up and join them, you are signing an agreement saying that what you say or what you do outside of company time and like not is a reflection of you and not the company, that you are not able to speak on the behalf of the company. So if you're not able to speak on the behalf of the company, that means that as far as it matters, anything you say does not mean that's what the company said. Therefore, you are not a reflection of the company's thoughts. So you will sign those things. Those are plenty of companies. That's a very common thing you see. I would like that to become the norm in a lot more places. I would like for people to recognize that when these kind of things happen, when these very hot and heated situations across the world pop up, and that they are essentially the next thing to debate or talk about, that they're going to show up. It's inevitable. And that you need to be prepped and ready for it, and to only apply a punishment where it is appropriate and acceptable to do so with a level and even hand, regardless of who may or may not have investment into you, regardless of where or where not you worry about your future. And yes, I know, obviously you have to protect your company, because as much as maybe somebody doesn't want to hear it, a company is very important. If your company goes away, well, then everybody's out of a job.
Yep.
And nobody's making any money. And that's a lot of people now suddenly going to have to come home and try to figure out what the hell they have to do. Obviously, you need to kind of protect the investments of that company too. And that's probably a kind way of putting that to some people, but it is the truth. I hope, again, though, that companies take this chance to expand upon what people underneath them can and cannot do, to make more sense of it, to enlighten us, or to enlighten, I should say, not us, but people, about their employees, about what is okay. That the same concept that Blizzard take a lesson from this and recognize that while the reaction was fast and insanely so, in fact, it was perhaps done too strongly. And that they need to potentially work on better conveying what potential repercussions there might be, as opposed to this. Because if you leave it this way, if you leave it ambiguous, you're only going to get people who are angry. Mm-hmm. Because the rules aren't clear enough. The line isn't drawn well enough. You started a line, but then you kind of said, well, actually the line kind of encompasses more of an area as opposed to just an actual divider.
Yeah.
That is going to lead to people to shouting about things, about a stance and a take. And I'm not saying that creating a line is going to get rid of that. But when you make the line clear, when you set the terms as plain as day right from the get-go, a lot more people are going to be sympathetic and are understanding, or are not going to lash out as harshly when ultimately, and I don't want to say a punishment like a parent, but when a consequence or a punishment is doled out for somebody breaking a rule. Yep. That's the best lesson I think could be taken from this, truthfully.
Yeah, I mean, I think people have been pretty unified in, supporting Blitzchung and, kind of siding with them and stuff. And I haven't really seen people demanding that they put him, back.
Yeah. Nobody's demanding.
People understand, and he, like I said, I believe he understood that he knew that was going to happen. He was willing to sacrifice that. And hey, man, kudos. That's what courage is in a sense. It's standing up for what you believe in, even though it's going to hurt you and cost you in the long run. So,
yeah, I don't think anybody's really upset that he was so much let go, or that he was so much everything he received a punishment. I think what people are mostly upset about ultimately is the severity of said punishment.
Yeah.
About how it feels like the punishment was not only very strong, like taking a shotgun to the face, but that it was in fact utilizing a shotgun which hit people nearby that technically had really no influence on this, other than the fact that they were told we're going to have an interview with this dude at the end. So, hey, what did you want to say for your interview? And this is what he said. I think that's really where a lot of the anger comes from, is that there's just such a harsh retaliation from a company on somebody. And I think that's where the real anger and issues stem from. But, he knew that could potentially be the possibility. Yep. And he still said what he had to say. And you got to give respect where respect's due.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's a hard thing to do. Did you see the translation of the letter that they sent in Mandarin to their Chinese audience? I don't want to misquote it, so I'm not gonna
I have
say anything,
not.
but it's they say something about, if I remember correctly, like defending the honor of China is like the Blizzard official statement. I was like, okay, that's kind of
That's a little bit weird.
that's weird. Yeah, so I'll find it, but I don't want to like completely misquote it. That's like the one part I remember. So it's
I don't think that's really defending the honor of China. I don't think that makes.
it's just a weird way to word it, you know.
Yeah, like
it's very
sure
like nationalistic-y kind of
sort of.
vibe.
I don't want to say propaganda, but here I go.
Yeah, exactly.
Because last I checked, the definition of honor is not about whether you think a nation is a part of you or not. It's not really an honor thing. Honor is more of the integrity of oneself, as opposed by the societal norms upon around them that they kind of are forced to agree to. Unfortunately, we all are.
Mm-hmm.
As well as to their own standing within those societal norms for themselves, where they stand as a part of it, generally based on good virtues that are commonly shared between many cultures, though obviously taking different approaches to that based on the laws and the time of when that code of honor was designed. But generally put, it's kind of similar throughout history.
Yeah.
So it's kind of weird to say this is defending the honor of China. Not really defending anybody.
So yeah, but anyways, I think we've covered it pretty well.
Said as much as we can on the subject.
All right.
I mean, there's not a lot more to say.
I did want to say this on the podcast. We talked about it a little bit before on a bit of a lighter note. That the PS5 was announced without much aplomb at all. It was like a weak little tweet. But then again, we didn't get that much info. It talked about the controller and the solid state drive on it and stuff. They're like, yeah, it's coming next year, holidays.
I'm really surprised by, and I'm slightly interested in, but I also think it's going to be a pain in the ass, is you can now do what's called modular. I'm assuming it's akin to this, I guess. Modular downloading is what I'm going to call it. Where you can essentially download, you can just download, if you buy the full game, normally you get let's say Halo 7. We'll call it Halo 7 because I feel like that's appropriate. Halo 7 comes with a story mode, a single player, potentially local co-op. I can't remember I don't know if they've taken those away or not yet.
I think I know where you're going with this. Oh god.
Multiplayer and so on and so forth. And in this one, now apparently you can download just a part of the game.
Oh no, it was. That sounds what?
Yep. You could download the single player part of the game and just start playing that while the rest downloads, or you don't even want it, or you can just download the multiplayer. Never care about the single player. It feels really weird that I would pay $60 for a game, and then I wouldn't download the whole game. Now, I will admit that the concept is behind. I'm guessing their concept was really good here because they did make mention of this. Is that the idea is that if you don't really care about the single player, then why waste the space on your hard drive? The difference being is that if I have to download the whole game, I'll download the whole game, I'll play everything I can, and then I only start playing multiplayer. I never play single player again. Well, my obviously my solid state and my new swanky PS5 has only so much space on it, and it's I don't need that single player campaign, so I'll uninstall that part, and I'll have some space back for my next game that I want to get and install on it.
Yeah.
And that's the concept they're trying to do. I just think it's really weird. It feels odd, and I'm sure there will be people out there who are like, it's a great idea. And I think from where they stand, yeah, it's absolutely a great idea if you want to save space. I only play the multiplaer. Absolutely.
Maybe if I only had to pay half price, then I would be fine with it. But $60, yeah, it's interesting. Maybe if it's just like a feature, you kind of get. Maybe kind of interesting.
If you're buying, you still have to buy the whole game. So if you're only going to play single player, unfortunately, you're still going to have to pay the $60. If you know you're going to play only the multiplayer, well, unfortunately, you're still going to have to pay the $60 to buy the game. But once you've bought the game, you can download parts of the game. That's the whole concept of it. Huh. I don't know how much I feel about it. I think actually, what I really think would be cool is if you could just buy the single player part of it.
Yeah, it'd be.
Would that not be awesome?
Yeah, if you got a discount, even if you only paid $40. I mean, sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'd do that.
Yeah, and then if you want to buy the rest of the game, you can just pay the extra $20 to get whatever is left on it.
Yeah.
I think that would be a way better idea. Like, but I don't know if that would be really easy.
That's
like,
probably like I don't know. Yeah, I don't know how feasible that is logistically.
I don't know. Yeah, logistically,
so.
that's a lot of work. You suddenly like you've chunked up your game into like viable components.
How does that work with physical media too? Like,
Yeah,
it's not really an option.
I don't think that's really an option for physical media. I think you would just have to, if you bought a physical disc, you're paying for the whole bloody thing.
Do you think
but on the plus side, you have a physical disc.
Do you think they'll kind of do away? Because that was a big hubbub around this current generation we're in when it was first announced. They were really pushing towards digital only.
Yeah, but that's obviously seen a lot of kickback. A lot of pushback. It. Yeah, yep. People really like their physical media. I like my physical media. I like owning the game.
There's some games I don't mind like doing it.
Oh
just downloading or whatever. But like the games I really care about, I have like physical copies of them.
Yeah, like for instance, for Final Fantasy VII's coming out, I'm absolutely getting a physical copy of that game.
It's on 2 discs, Meta.
Yeah, I know.
2 Blu-ray.
It's crazy.
They keep showing little videos every day, new stuff, and it looks beautiful. The game looks amazing.
I hate the fact that I can't play it right now.
They showed the materia stuff the other day. Did you see that?
They did. It was
They're showing off the elemental materia, and the Buster Sword had like little chunks of ice on it.
Yeah,
it was cool. So,
I mean, like for me, like physical media. If you get like a physical media of a game, I would just say like buy for games that you really care about. Those are the ones that you normally might come back to and play again because they're just that good.
Yeah.
But then for like, I'd say games that you kind of more interested in just trying out, digital. Why go out to the store, drive out to the store to buy one or have one ordered to your house when you can just download it right on the spot, play it out, and then know if you like it or not.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm going to do for when I eventually do it. But I eventually will play Nier Automata, and I'm just going to do a virtual download. I don't care about actually getting physical media for that, because if they took that game away from me, I'd be like, no, I don't really care.
I bought the physical disc of it only because it was Mao final. I was talking to Mao about it for a while. I ended up not really liking the game, weirdly, because everyone loves it. But I was like, man, this game's been out for like a year and a half. It's still $50, $60. And Mao and I would just talk about it every once in a while, and it finally was on Amazon for like $30 or something. And he told me, and I bought it. And I got the physical version, but it's probably cheaper by now. Square's weird about that sometimes. Like, they'll have really good sales every once in a while on certain games, but like some stuff, they just will not come down on it. They're kind of like Nintendo in that regard.
To be fair though, Nier Automata is one of the few games where I can understand why, because it sold super well. So it's kind of like supply and demand.
As long as there's a demand for it, you're going to make $50 every time you sell it. Why not? People are willing to pay it. So.
Yeah, it's really hard to say no to that kind of thing. Yeah. I am excited. I'm really excited to see the details of PS5, because I was actually talking to Lily the other day about the UI, and I was like, I actually really like the UI for the PS4.
That should have been your answer for the last episode. We talked about UI.
Oh, you know what? You're right. My God.
You missed it. You missed your chance. You're right. Well, here you go. My late entry into that one is I like the. I thought I did say the PS4. You might have. I don't know.
I might have. I don't remember.
I agree.
I'm looking forward to what it looks like. I don't really care so much for the Xbox One.
Oh God, no! It's like Windows 8 all over again.
Yeah, it feels very Windows 8, and I don't care for it. It feels very weird for.
Remember the reveal conference when they had the guy? He's like, "You can do stuff with Kinect," and he was like squishing his hands and stuff and like moving stuff around. That's why.
Those things suck. I think it's really funny the fact that Kinect is finally gone and it's like it's not being talked about anymore. I'm like, this was just a terrible exercise that nobody should have gone into.
Yeah.
Never went anywhere. We didn't make anything better. We just went into virtual reality again. Now we've got VR headsets, which are VR headsets are, ironically enough, finally making their way into areas and whatnot. But they, again, from what I've heard, they don't bring much to the experience.
Yeah, they kind of got dropped off. It was one of those like novel things for like a year, and then like no one just developed any games for them.
Nobody developed any good games for them. That's the problem.
Yeah, they're all like the cheap Steam games that you get on sale for like $3.
Yeah,
you're paying $60 for them.
When you're in a drunken haze and you're like, "This game looks great."
Steam sale. I'm clicking. I'm just clicking.
I keep on buying.
It's a freaking $1, and you never play it.
Yeah. So I don't know about that, but like I said, I am excited to see what it does because I did not care for Xbox One. I think Xbox One had a very terrible UI. There's just something about it. It's both cluttered and not informative enough. It's like the weirdest experience with it. I also note, and it's probably just me, but I swear to God, and I don't know why, it's been on multiple TVs, so it's not the TV either. I will press a button to go in a certain direction when I'm not in a game, and there's lag on the actual UI screen. Like, it actually, it has a hard time trying to go to the next freaking, to the next page, or to choose the next option on that page. It actually boggled my mind. I was like, why is this happening? PS4 doesn't do it. No. It's totally fine. Just seems to be my Xbox One. So there must be something wrong with the Xbox, I think.
Yeah. You think the people who bought PS4 Pros are happy now?
I bought
a PS4 enough
Pro.
time?
I've had a PS4 Pro.
Are you happy?
I'm happy with it. I think it's fine. I think it did exactly what I want.
You're going to have to buy another PS5 in like a year?
No, I'm fine with it.
Not really? You don't care? Okay.
I don't really care all that
Just
much.
Curious.
PS4 Pro, PS4 Pro did exactly what I wanted it to do, which was one, increase its performance a bit because I thought the PS4 was a little bit wonky in performance, and decrease its jet engines on the back of it because I really thought it was really weird that the PS4 seemed to have this like need to lift off from a carrier out at sea with the amount of heat and like force of its fans. So the PS4 like fixed a lot of things, and then I never had a use for 4K. I thought it was like 1080. How much more clear can it possibly be? And I'm like, 4K is not that much clearer than 1080. We're getting really extreme with that 4K. And at the time it came out, 4K TVs were not the norm, so you really had to go out of your way to make use of it. So I just did it in 1080. 1080's been fine. I see everything clear as day in 1080. I'm sure I'll say that later on when eventually 4K comes to the norm. We're like looking for 12K. Can't wait.
No, I think we're way beyond that now.
What are we at? 40? What are we at? Warhammer 40K now? Is that where we're at?
Yeah. No, let's not go there. I don't ever want to go there.
It's a shitty place.
Yeah. But anyways, lest we stretch out we almost basically turned like my general rambling.
Let's end this before an hour. Let's be this first.
It was supposed to be a serious episode, our first ever one, and then we made it silly at the end.
We'll start off serious. But we're gonna end it lightheartedly. Okay.
This has been episode 92, the podcast of 5 Rings, your source for enlightenment around the video games, tabletop, anime, film, and tech. Each episode of Podcast of 5 Rings releases Monday mornings on iTunes and SoundCloud, and topic by topic, day by day on YouTube, with the full video releasing on Friday.
Yes, tell the unwashed masses.
Yes, check us out on Twitter, Podcast5R, Facebook, P5R Podcast. I don't remember the name of Tetsuo's blog, The Geeky Spirit.
The Geeky Spirit.
And the Meta and Lily stream, twitch.tv/PSO
only the
Flow.
finest of games are presented.
Very good, chap.
Very good.
We'll be off next week, more than likely.
Yeah,
I'm going to a Dream Theater concert.
I'm way too lazy to try to do it as well. Without I'm sure Tets is gonna be busy and whatnot. So
just yell in the microphone by yourself.
I'll start singing "Crawling."
And then you know what? Then BlizzCon will be back, and we can talk about Hong Kong all again when someone shows up with a sign and gets kicked out.
I can't wait for when somebody asks them if they've got phones.
Yeah. Ooh, yeah.
Oh boy.
Okay. Until next time, people. Take it easy. Later. Have some fun with your something. Whatever
I said
you
later
like
already, Obs. I can't say later a second time.
Goodbye.